You know what?
Whoops.
Welcome.
Whoops.
Making sure our mics are green.
And that our timer is on. Do you hear that
And-
beeping? Clear. Start. All right.
Charge! And, there's a lot of green going on. I got green juice.
Me too.
I got a green couch.
And we got some green flags.
And we got some green flags.
God.
Also some red flags. So welcome to Unhinged.
I like how I watched your thought process there of like, should I stop it and redo it? And you're like, nah, this is what this is.
I just said fuck it, we ball.
Yeah, this is what we do. This is authentic.
Do you know what? Cheers to that. Here. I'm going to cheers to our green juice.
Green juice.
Oh my gosh. Here we go.
Here we
Welcome, Therapists Unhinged. I am Taylor Moore.
And I am Madalyn. Oh, I've never said Madalyn. I'm Maddie. Don't call me Madalyn.
I know. Actually, I probably should have just clarified. I know I put Madalyn Alvarez, I think, on your, every time I introduce you there. But that's because I went to your social media first.
Right.
I was like, I didn't ask you for permission, but I looked. I was like, nah, that gave me permission, how you advertise yourself. But
that is my name. So
yeah.
I just, in this space, it's more of a friendly vibe.
It's more fun.
So we're chilling. We're friendly. We're having a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. I always tell people, I was like, you can call me Tay when you're close to me, and none of y'all are there yet.
It's only the 5th episode?
So, yeah, this is officially the 5th.
Wow, the 5th.
The 5th.
This is the 5th episode, guys. We are pretty much still not good at this.
It's funny because I was just talking to someone. They're like, you mispronounce stuff or things like that. And I was like, you know what? I do not edit these for that very reason. I was like, I don't mind if I mispronounce stuff, and I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
That's the unhinged part of it.
I'm okay with you telling me I did something that wasn't perfect.
Thanks for your unsolicited advice.
Just like the unsolicited advice we're giving you here today.
Actually, no, you're here for this.
Yeah, you guys came here.
You decided to show up.
And also
feel free to not.
Yeah, and it's also not advice. It's just us talking,
Because advice is a red flag.
And because we are not giving therapy.
Correct.
We are giving thoughts.
We're just having a friendly chat.
We're thinking out loud for you.
Thinking out loud. Ed Sheeran. Okay, well, welcome.
I was like, I got to regulate my nervous system for a minute. Okay.
So today's episode, if you couldn't tell, I know we gave a little bit of a drum roll for last time.
Oh, man, I really messed that one up.
No, I feel like you got it this time.
Wait, can you do it again?
No, ready? Drum roll for Maddie. The episode title is...
It's giving therapy green flags, parentheses, and red flags that should have been a crime, parentheses, quote.
And scene. But yeah, so we're going over green flags and red flags. Obviously, very trendy topics, content, name, title. For our... not session today, before our podcast today. Our main goal with this is to kind of go through the therapeutic process from our perspective of our interactions with clinicians, also our interactions, in general with other therapists, and, kind of our own accountability for our red flags along the journey of where we might have had missteps, but we've learned to correct them now because it's important. And then also kind of red flags that we see as clinicians with clients and patients more commonly. And when I say these red flags, I do want to say it's our way of like, hey, that might be a hot spot. That might be something we need to hone in on, or maybe we need to dive a little deeper. It's never something of us being like judgy.
Right.
Because I know that this can be kind of a judgy kind of topic content, but it's more of us like, hey, as therapists, we need to hone in because we are not judgmental.
Yeah. We are curious.
We're curious
Super
individuals, as I hope you will be a little bit more after today. So I guess we can start with that top one. Let's go ahead and go with our kind of view of clinicians along the way. Maybe we were younger, grew up in this kind of realm, and things that we kind of saw in our journey. And yeah, so what red flags have you encountered, Maddie, I guess, with other clinicians?
Well, first I want to give like a little disclaimer as we get into this. Is like, I think I said this before, autonomy is so cool because we have free will and we have choice. And so, as we talk about this, just like, no, you can like pick a therapist that vibes with you. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that therapist, right? It just means like You don't vibe with that person and you get to choose. So
Yep.
this is me speaking on choice. This is not me speaking on judgment. So I think one of the biggest things I noticed in this isn't in a therapist, this is more in like psychiatrist. I've gone through a lot of psychiatrists just because I feel like I was really looking for some compassion. And so a big red flag for me in a therapist and in a psychiatrist would be to be compassionate,
Yeah.
obviously. I think a lot of the times compassion fatigue is real. We can get fatigued because we, hear a lot of hard stuff all day long. And I think if you're not checking yourself, that can be very apparent to a client if you're not feeling compassionate. And I've had that happen to me before where it's just like check, 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 right? Like
Boxes, yeah.
box checking. And I really didn't like that. It felt really invalidating to me. And also it was just a good reminder to be like, I really need to make sure I don't do that.
Yeah. I was about to say, you experiencing that probably definitely reinforced, like, I want to make sure I'm client focused and client centered.
Right. Client focused, client centered. So there's that. If I'm being honest, it's really the only experience I've had. I have not had, and I'm very grateful to say, I've not had bad experiences with therapists. I think a part of what I've learned too is as a therapist, discomfort and being uncomfortable, I used to very much like run from. And I think in the therapeutic process, that is so, it's just going to happen. You're going to be uncomfortable. And so for me, it was like, instead of filtering through therapists, I was like, this is uncomfortable. It doesn't mean it's the person in front of me.
Yeah.
This is just uncomfortable. Now, obviously, you need to be able to tell the difference.
It's like there's levels of discomfort you'll always experience.
Like I'm uncomfortable because I don't like what I'm experiencing internally, or I'm uncomfortable because this person is making me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Right. And so I have not had too many bad experiences or really any at all with therapy. I'm very grateful. I've been seeing my therapist for the last year and she's a green flag. So,
a green flag therapist.
Yeah, green flag therapist, which I can speak on a little bit later because I know you actually have more of a red flag story.
Yeah, exactly. I think when it comes down to it, I like that you talked about where I think there was a time frame where it was like the clinician you had in front of you, that was it. And I think that was the barrier where it's like, no, like you deserve like the approach to your medical journey the way you want to see it fit. Of course, there's levels of discomfort that you have to recognize of like, is this what I'm here for? Is this where I'm trying to get the challenge? Or is this like, hey, we don't mesh well. We don't speak to each other's like language properly because medical jargon is hard. I know a lot of people, I work with a lot of kiddos, so I know I'm always trying to bring it kind of down and just never really use like harsh verbiage, not harsh, but too much medical jargon whenever I'm talking to kiddos. So I think my journey whenever I was younger, it was very much so like that, where, I was just kind of like, what am I doing here? And I never understood it. And that was my first kind of interaction as a kid. I was just kind of like, okay, I'm here. Don't know why I'm here. And I remember just, being medicated at that point in time. So I never felt like I truly understood what was going on. And so I think that's another thing where now I'm in here and I'm like, this is why I want to be completely clear with the kids too. If their parents are saying something, I'm like, hey, your parents obviously felt like something was going on here. What do you think was, why do you think you're here? It's like, I don't think anyone ever asked me that as a kid. What do you think you're here for? What are you hoping to gain from this? So I think it's just that like barrier saying, hey, we need to be more understanding, especially as children, of saying, hey, did you like this doctor? Like, do you feel like you meshed with? I think asking your kids that, green flag.
Green flag.
Green flag if they feel connected to their clinicians, their PCP, their dietitian.
Your OBGYN.
OBGYN. It's just going to be weird. Shout out, Mom.
Oh, yeah.
Shout out to my mom.
Green flag.
Green flag. But I will say another thing, too, is fast forward to my adult years. That was where my interaction, I know I kind of talked about it very first episode. I had an interaction with my therapist that's kind of kept me away from therapy. And I recognize that. Still haven't done it. Accountability right here. But finding a therapist for a therapist, I was on a platform and it gives you like 24 hours to cancel. Like it gives you, that 24-hour mark and saying like, hey, you need to cancel if you're not going to be able to make it. I remember my schedule backed up. I was mid-master's program and just ebbing and flowing of where I was needed for internships and stuff, and then also cycle bar. So I was all over the place.
Stacked.
But I remember I canceled a session. I think I canceled 2 back to back. One the week before and one the week after. And I think it was just year, midterms kind of stuff was going on.
I'm so sorry.
Maddie's.
I'm having some issues.
Maddie's thing just fell in her lap. I think it's this one.
Oh.
Yeah, it needs to be tightened.
There we go.
Oh, gosh. She's got this, guys.
This is a red flag.
This is red flag to the... There we go.
But it's also... I'm like, do I need to stand?
No.
Okay.
That should be good.
I just tried to get way too comfortable and it did not work out. Okay.
Just make sure it doesn't go red on you. Is it green?
It's green.
We're still green flags over here.
Sorry for interrupting.
No,
Please continue.
it was mic malfunction. What was I saying?
Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No. I do remember.
Oh, you rescheduled twice.
I rescheduled twice. And so I canceled and then she messaged me, which, yes, if you have a patient that's canceling, yes, be like, hey, just wanted to check in. I noticed you canceled twice.
Yeah.
Because that's holding someone accountable and also checking in because there might be something going on and they're being avoidant. So yes, I totally saw that. So I was like, when I saw her message me, I was like, yeah, that tracks. But it's what she said. And of course, playing the 2 side, but I remember how it made me feel in the moment. It shut me down because she was like, hey, you're getting into this field and I think you should understand that, someone's schedule, like this is money for me, and I could have had someone else fill this slot. And I'm not having it filled now, even if you do cancel 24 hours. And so I remember just being like, okay. And I didn't obviously go back. I didn't go try to find another one.
Right.
It was kind of just, you should know better.
Mm.
And that's of course, like, that's what's kind of been in my head. And I think at the same time, I've been trying to kind of strip that down because I think that had a lot more detriment than I think she realized. And then maybe than she meant or than anything, because I think I ran with that. I should know better. I probably shouldn't even be doing, like, why am I in therapy? I'm a therapist. I should be healed. And that is so wrong of me. Like, that's so wrong of my thinking. And I despise myself for having that block. But at the same time, I do know that I haven't made time for it since. And I think that I just need to like check that more of like,
I get it.
yeah. So it was hard. It was really hard. And of course, like, again, we're not judging. I just like, I remember that was like a red flag for me and that deterred me. And we're going to obviously hold ourselves accountable for things like, that maybe we've kind of misstepped. We're human beings. But I think, again, I definitely need to have someone who is a therapist that therapizes other therapists.
Right.
Because I think that'll help me in the long run of someone who is going to be understanding, holds me accountable, but isn't going to, I guess, I don't want to say shame.
I think there could have been a different approach. She's not wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, I get it.
Yeah,
like
I
now on this
absolutely
side.
do.
Right.
Coming from this side of it, but you don't, I never would tell a patient
that way. It's very curt, very harsh.
Yeah.
Very harsh. There could have been a little bit more compassion behind it, or, even checking in like, hey, are you okay? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then if it continued, right? And then I would be like, hey, like, this isn't going to work. My time is very valuable, whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So I totally understand what you're saying.
And that was the hard thing because the platform that they were on offered that to me. It was just like, hey, are you confirm or cancel? It would be like 24 hours before the session, confirm or cancel. And I was like, in my head, every time I would check and I'd look at my schedule and be like, can I fit it in? Would this stress me out? I remember having that negotiation with myself. And then I was just like, no,
you
can't do it.
followed the protocol too. So that's where I'm like,
yeah, that's where because I think it was like, if you canceled after that, you get charged and they would get the money, like they would make the money off that time slot.
Right.
So it was confusing, I think, at that point. I also think that maybe she needed to adjust like to her protocols. Yeah.
Right.
Or just be like, hey, this platform doesn't support kind of your needs
Right.
with that. But of course, sidebar. But I think, when it comes down to it, you can understand it. But it's saying it definitely was one of the red flags in my experiences that kind of threw me off. So I think too, kind of different versions when I was younger, not necessarily people being curious enough with me as a kid. And that kind of made me want to really get into this field, seeing those kind of flags and
Mm-hmm.
seeing the approaches from other people. But then also in my adulthood now and realizing and recognizing it's kind of kept me away. So, red flags with therapists, I think we realize they can be pivotal for people. They can be, I don't want to say like life changing, but they can make really big impacts.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very important aspect of our job, and recognizing that is what we say and what we do and how we move with people and interact with people. It holds value and it holds um, importance. So it's not something that's, we don't, what's the word for it? It doesn't come light to us, or what is it?
Right. No,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
it holds weight. And
Yeah.
I think, based off of what you're saying, a portion of this that's also important is like, I think I've mentioned this before, I don't know when, but I've said as a client, you can say you don't like something because I want to play both sides and say, like, we don't know what we don't know,
Yeah.
right? If something like, and that's the thing about therapy is like different things are going to affect people in different ways. That may have like been really like impactful for you, and then the next person would have been like maybe like has lived in a world of shame where that's just like normal and never thought any differently of it,
Yeah.
right? And so, which is terrible, and I'm not saying it's okay, but what I am saying is like I come from a very avoidant perspective where I
Yeah.
don't want to say like, hey, that hurt my feelings, or like,
Yeah.
hey, can we talk about this? And I will say some of the most like cool moments I've had in my own practice and therapy is when a patient tells me, hey, I didn't like when you said this,
Yeah.
or this upset me. My initial reaction at first was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
People pleaser.
But yeah, I was like, oh my God, what can I do for you? Do you want a picture? Do you want me to draw you a picture? But now it's come to the point where like, I'm like, hey, I'm so proud of you that
Yeah.
you told me that.
Yeah.
Like,
The setting the boundaries.
yeah, I'm like, thank you for saying that. And, and then I'll be like, hey, this is what I meant by that, but I
Mhm.
am sorry that it came across like that to
Yeah.
you. And like, those have been some of the coolest, like, it's called rupture and repair, baby.
Yeah.
Because we could rupture at any moment, but I can't repair it if you don't tell me that it's been ruptured.
Yeah. Because then I think that's what leads to kind of like resentment or just even lack of honesty, I think, too, in a therapeutic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because whenever you're kind of moving, I love unauthentically,
Mm-hmm.
like say something you did bothered me, but I'm
Right.
not going to tell you.
Mm-hmm.
That's my way of like not being honest. And I probably will maneuver differently with
Mm-hmm.
you because I don't feel like I can be truly open. So if you notice, you're like, hey, I'm kind of keeping some stuff from my therapist.
Right. Go
Check in with
tell
that. And I was like, no,
'em.
figure out why. Like, what is it? Is it
Right.
something where you're maneuvering with them because you want to avoid conflict? You don't feel like maybe you feel like they've been judgy or using
Mm-hmm.
judgmental verbiage. It's just something I think I would check in with and then see if that's something you can move forward through. Because I don't want to say like you're wasting your time, but I was like, if you're keeping stuff,
You are
yeah,
in a
you kind of
sense kind of
are.
wasting time. And I will
Yeah.
say like that kind of goes into like what could be considered a really cool green flag for a therapist is their ability to handle conflict
Yeah.
or rupture, right? And a really good therapist should model healthy communication in times of conflict, right?
Yeah.
And I can red flag myself before. Like I've said, I work in substance use, addiction, and trauma treatment where addiction can look very like when people are detoxing or
Oh, yeah.
they can look very aggressive. They can
It's
say things.
very different.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been called every name in the book, and at the very beginning, I'll red flag myself. I didn't handle it well. I would meet with defensiveness back.
Yeah.
Um, and it's very different from like private practice therapy now. I know you kind
Mm-hmm.
of like know
Similar.
similarly.
Yeah.
In that residential treatment center, you are, we should have extra grace because there's, a lot
Yeah.
more going on. And maybe I need to go listen to the boundary episode so I can remember how to.
Backtrack it.
Right. But like the point in what I'm saying is like, I have not demonstrated healthy like repair before.
Ah.
I've been very avoidant where I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. And,
Yeah.
so green flag is when your therapist can model, healthy communication in times of conflict.
Yeah. I think that that's fair to say too, because I think whenever we can handle, us kind of getting it dished back to us,
Mm-hmm.
you take what you can't take the heat straight out of the kitchen.
Right.
So I will say I agree with you. I think I'm trying to think of a time where I felt that way. I know that I noticed more of a challenge with kiddos. I
Mm.
think with adults, I feel like I can handle stuff. I know that one of the ones, it's actually interesting enough with scheduling. I remember I had someone who was just like, hey, scheduling, I just need more consistency with it because it makes me like they talked about their, anxiety and stuff where it's just like I need more routine. I was like, I get that. That makes sense. So they held me accountable because of, different scheduling stuff. Um but asking for that and advocating for that for your needs of saying, okay, I deserve this. It would be weird if I felt like I couldn't provide that.
Well, you could have very well come back with that and said like, "Hey, like my schedule, the way it's set up, like doesn't
Mhm.
always call for what you need.
Yeah.
Do I need to refer you
You
out?"
refer you out,
Like
yeah.
that's the cool part of all of this. Is
Yeah.
like just because we have conflict or just because we disagree doesn't mean like the other person has to change.
Yeah.
But there is a solution
Yeah.
always.
Are you capable of that change? And if not, then
Right. So
yeah.
like unless, your therapist is like calling you a bitch or something, that's not the same. If that's happening, red
Have
flag.
you been on your Unhinged Therapist podcast?
Right.
Yeah, red flag. Red flag if your therapist is calling you names. But yeah, let's just like hope that that's not even a
I
thing.
really pray that it's not. And if it
That's
is, I am so, so sorry because that is terrible.
I'm trying to even think in role play. Like if you're doing role play with a patient,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, yeah. So, anyways, sidebar.
I know. I'm like, where did we go there? Maybe we transition and we go into green flags.
Yeah,
I
so we
think I
can
kind of
start.
went
I think,
there.
well, we can talk on, yeah, so we talked on obviously sort of red flags that we've experienced personally. Red flags we've thought that we've kind of maybe given before too. Like I said, maybe more so
Mm.
with my kiddos. I think I didn't touch on that yet, but that was more
Well,
of,
let's go there. We can
it
go
was
there.
more of the savior complex. I think it was just more so, I was very like fix it.
Right.
I wanted to get fix it with kids. And I think I talked on it before is because sometimes I only had them for an
Right.
hour and that was it. And I might not see them again. And so I felt like it was word vomit. I'd be like, you need this, 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 and this.
Right.
Like, you're amazing. So don't let anyone tell you that you're.
Yeah.
So I just remember in the very beginning, I would be very much so like that. I'm like, did I even let them talk? Did I even let them say anything?
Red flag.
Red flag.
Red flag.
Exactly.
Which I'm only saying that because I've done the same thing.
No.
But there was a time in my early, and even still sometimes now, when silence was like,
Oh, I had to learn to sit in that. I made
Mhm.
myself.
I would talk for no reason. I'd be like, I call them in my small process groups at work now, I call them TED Talks. And so my girls know when I'm
Yeah.
like trying to fill the silence.
Yeah.
Because I'll go on a TED Talk.
Yeah. I call it tangent. I'm
yeah.
like, thank you for letting me go on my tangent.
I'm like, that was my TED Talk. I'm so sorry. Let's take a minute of silence.
Let's take a minute of silence. You can process what I said.
Right. Any questions? So sorry. Anyway, and like green flag, ding, 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 is when your therapist can hold herself accountable
Yeah.
or himself accountable. And like I will always, and this is just me, not all therapists do this, but I will always like own up to my mistakes, even if they don't, like if I've made a mistake, it's not the kind of thing where it's like, oh, they didn't see that, they didn't notice that. Like
Yeah.
at this point, like I know I'm working with a lot of women who have never really spoken up on their needs and don't know how. So sometimes I'll just like say it. I'm like, hey guys, like I recognize that I probably sounded a little like too passionate there. May
Yeah.
have come off a little aggressive. I just want to say like, I'm sorry. Did
Yeah.
anybody feel that way? You know?
I think it's important to label those things like, hey, spicy take, like, hey, this, TED Talk, I'm going off on my tangent. Let's take a pause. Do we have any questions about what I
Right.
said? Did anything kind of get lost in that? Or did you have a thought before I went off on that you want me to help circle back
Right.
to?
Did I like interrupt your thought process?
Yeah.
Whatever.
It's like checking in. I think, of course, like that was early years, but that still does come up too. Like whenever you're talking about the TED Talk, I think when we're on a topic and I get asked a question, sometimes I'll be like, yeah, because psychoeducation is a huge piece and
Oh,
obviously
yeah.
my groups. So I'll get asked a question and I'll
Go
roll. And I'm like, that was a lot. They probably just wanted the basics. And I went full throttle. So it's just recognizing that and just labeling it for them. And, sometimes they jam with it. And sometimes they're like, no, I was writing everything down.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do that again.
Like, great.
So perfect.
Well, and I think it also gives permission for this open communication.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she like, or, this therapist like is pretty self-aware
Yeah.
for the most part, and like, so maybe we could have this open dialogue,
Yeah.
and I can say when I don't like something or when I'm confused,
Mhm.
because I've seen it on patients' faces when I've said something and they're like, "What?" And I'm like, "I do you have a like, you can ask me a question."
Do you have a
I
question?
know, and
Do
but I
you
can
It's like
feel
the
it.
Spider-Mans,
I
like,
know.
pointing at each
Who
other,
has
"You
a
talk, you
question?
talk."
Yeah.
Now, I will say, I feel like majority of my patients now, I have such a diverse approach to a lot of them. There's some that will talk the whole hour, and I get maybe like a few nods and like, "How do you feel about that?"
Yeah.
Or like expand a little further or backtrack to this. And then there's some where they're sitting and I ask questions and I get, maybe a few sentences. So I guess that's where, it's just, I have a way of like navigating those now, which is good. But I think the green flag is I've learned a lot that every patient's needs is going to be different. Some people love the logic and they want me to go on my TED Talks about the certain, therapeutic approaches and they'll want, example after example of how to
Right.
use it. And then I'll have some that just need to use me for event session and I'm going to have to find you know, the way of untangling that web and relate it to their goals of their treatment because
Yes.
there's a lot of times where I do that and they'll have it'll be the conflict of the night, but I'll be like, this is showing me a pattern of something,
Right.
so I,
Bringing it back.
yeah, so there's so many different ways I do things now that I appreciate myself so for. So I'll give
Pat
myself a
on the
pat on the
back.
back for that. It's a lot different, but that's also because my days are very different. I'm not just working with kids. I'm working with adults. I'm working with groups. I'm working
Right.
with individuals, 30 minutes, 1 hour. Everything looks different. So why shouldn't my approaches be different too?
Red flag. Well, that's a green flag, but a red flag we could go off of is when you have, look, we all specialize in particular
Mhm.
modalities
Yeah.
and like things, and that's cool. And it's awesome that we specialize. But if you're finding that your therapist only uses one modality and is like married to it and will not like, kind of mold. I tell my patients this every single time I meet with them. My job is to mold to you.
Yeah.
Your job is not to mold to me.
Yeah.
You let me do the molding. And if I'm always like, tell me if you like this assignment that I give you. Tell me if you like this approach I'm, doing. And I know some therapists, or I've heard stories of some therapists that like refuse to like go off from CBT or like a very
Yeah.
specific modality. It's like our job is to be very fluid.
Yes, it is very fluid. But I guess like on the other end too of that, if they're labeling it of what it is, like you're not going to go to a yoga class and expect to be dancing.
Right.
Like so it's like if someone is like this is what I do and this is where I'm
Right.
at, I would just be like, hey, understanding what that means
Right.
and to go to them. But yeah, no, I completely agree. As someone who is very fluid and loves to use different modalities, learn about different modalities, use a handful maybe in one session. There's times where I've jumped between 5 or 4 different approaches. But I will say this, if someone is married to it or you're going to someone like a faith-based,
And you're not faith-based.
yeah, and you're
Yeah.
not faith-based. So it'd be, doing yourself a disservice and doing them a disservice to expect something different. So I will say if they're labeling it for you,
Know what to
know what
expect.
to
Right. No,
expect.
that's a good point. And I also think like part of in our ethical like guidelines is continued education.
Oh yeah.
Part of what we do and what we are required to do is continuing education so we do not run across this problem of like we only know how to operate from this one
Yeah, because there's new
lens.
methods and stuff coming
Right.
in. There's adjustments to past methods.
The DSM's updated every freaking year. So like we've got to keep up too because time doesn't slow down and things change every day.
Yeah.
And we are meant to, I mean, I really do think therapists have to be fluid.
Yeah.
We cannot be rigid.
Oh yeah. No, I completely agree. I think green flags is I will say this too. I mean, chat GPT is like a big part of therapy, I feel like now. Not for me to say, but I know a lot of my patients utilize that. Well, they'll be like, hey, like I put something in that you put down and, I know you were talking in the group and you weren't able to, but I had it give me, little examples of how to use this in, a workspace. And I was like, okay, let me hear it. Like immediately I wasn't like, no,
Right.
but I was like, let me hear like what it gave back. And I was like, okay, I like 2 of those. I actually do really like 2 of those and you implementing those. How do you feel about moving with those? She's like, yeah, I think I can do it. Maybe I'll ask it to, set a routine, create a routine for me. It is so profound like, I will say it's a great tool.
Right.
Now, is it the only tool? No, but I would be rigid in being like, no, don't use that, like,
Right.
type of thing, where this is a part of the life. But I love that, they're bringing it to me and exploring it with me, of saying like, hey, what do you think about this?
Well, you offer the humanity, right?
Yeah.
Like Chat GPT don't know you,
No,
right?
yeah.
Doesn't know what you've been through. It doesn't know your backstory. It doesn't know your triggers. It does.
Yep.
I used that word
Yeah.
against myself. Oh my gosh. It doesn't
She
know
shivered.
your activations, right? And
Mhm.
so I think it's cool that you got to kind of say like, okay, those work, but these ones I think are the best for you, right? Based on what we know and based off your history. And so I just had to say that because I have a strong opinion about Chat GPT and therapy, and so I'm trying not to
Yeah.
divert from the actual content.
Yeah, that's why. Like, I know a lot of people are very like, no,
Right.
Zoltan. But no, I think with it, I will say there is beauty behind it. And I think I would push them more towards just using that if I wasn't like, oh yeah, like tell me more about it. Like, but also recognizing, hey, like, that seems like something I'm pretty sure we've tried to do.
For sure.
We've tried to do this. You're just hearing it from AI.
Right. Well, and also like I think I like what you did because you didn't like shut it down. And
Yeah.
it's like, and what's the harm in it if she's using it in between sessions? And like the point is like, I think my issue comes from like, do not make Chat GPT your therapist is
Oh,
all
yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you want to use it with your therapist, go for it.
Yeah. I think using it with your therapist, using it in tandem. I have it decorating my house right now.
No way.
But I would never, yeah, I'll show it to you later.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a cool thing.
Right.
There's no negating that. I think it's just more so it's not the only thing.
Right.
So that's not curious.
Hot take.
Hot take. But I think further green flags too. Well, actually, I like that I already did my green flag. I want to say my red flag is recognizing with your therapists that you are not supposed to be getting advice. They are not supposed to be making life choices for you.
Mm-hmm.
They are not supposed to be making decisions. They are not supposed to be fix it mode for you, which is why I red flagged myself when I was first starting out. You're not supposed to be the savior. You're not supposed to be this. So if you have a therapist who's giving you advice, and I'm not saying it's unsolicited because you probably might be asking them, like, what do you think? Like, what should I do? Oh my gosh. Yes, my friends even sometimes too. And I'm like, nope, you're not getting that.
What would
from
you
me.
do in that situation? What do you feel in your body?
I feel like the journeys that we're both on might be very different. So my approach to it would be different from yours, but I'm curious to see where you're at and like what you're leaning to, if you've done pros and cons before, if you've envisioned it one way and what's stopping you from making a choice.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
So that's where I would kind of, where it's just like, I don't want to say like, no, I'm like not answering that for you. Cause that's going to be like, what do you mean? But when you kind of put it back in their lap and you ask those questions that maybe they haven't asked themselves, that's when you get them.
Yeah, you could say like, well, yeah, I'm curious as to why you think that's a problem or why you think that that's tell me what about that is a good idea for you. Because then we just put it, your therapist should put it back on you.
Yeah. And I'm like, let's walk down both things. So if we make this
Right.
choice, what happens? Like, what do you think is this? Do we have distortions kind of or thinking errors in that, or, kind of walking down both paths? But it's more so, I've used it before. I could be the flashlight in your hand. I'm going to be like, point me this way, point me that way. Let's look at that further. But no, they're not going to be necessarily making decisions for you. So a lot of the times when I hear that my therapist told me to break up with you, or like my therapist told me to break.
Now I will say,
red flag.
I will say I do allow my patients who are learning to talk and speak up. I will say you can use me if you want to. Always. And if anyone out there, if you ever come to me for therapy, you can always use me. Now, I don't like it in terms of avoidance, right? I don't want you to just like continue to use me to avoid, right? But I will say like, hey, like, say so-and-so has this problem with their partner where every time they, their partner always wants to spend time with them and never gives them any space. And so I said, hey, you can let your partner know as you like learn to set boundaries with them that your therapist kind of gave you homework to spend 30 minutes to an hour in your own space.
But even that's not a red flag. I feel like the way you're using it too is very green flag, because it's like, my therapist and I have worked on this. That's one thing.
Right.
But if it's hey, my therapist said no, what that is showing me that you don't have autonomy, or
Right.
you're letting your choices be driven by another person. When I think so, it's the verbiage I think behind it, but I've heard it before. I'm just like, did
I
they?
know.
Did they tell you to do that? Because
Yeah.
even yours, I love that you said that though, because I remember even with my sisters or my parents would do that for me. They're like, you can use me as the bad guy. You can say that my dad wouldn't let me go to,
Right.
the thing. So I love that you said that, because I think I've used that for a few things where you're
Yeah.
just like, hey, yeah, I can't go. My parents said no,
Well, and I have to be careful because and I say this, I'm like, I don't want this to be avoidance, but if I'm actively, especially with boundaries, if I'm actively working
Mhm.
with somebody on boundaries and I know that it's like we're just dipping our toe into the water and for the last 30 years we've never set a boundary in our life,
Yeah.
then I'm going to say like, yeah, like if this helps you start to set the boundary, then please, like you can use me.
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with being the, not even bad guy, but like, yeah, like if you need the extra push, then there you go.
Use me
So
as the coach, the
use me as the coach.
accountability partner, because I feel like the accountability partner is not the bad guy, but they aren't going to enable stuff, and they are a pusher.
Right.
I'm a pusher. I
Right.
push people.
I push people.
That's
And
a good one though.
yeah, another real quick I told you this at the beginning. I wanted to talk about this like hot take, this
Oh yeah.
debate I'm seeing on TikTok that I'm like, I've got to speak on this, or I'm sure we have
Is
lots of
this like red flags for?
I wouldn't say it's a red flag. I just, a lot of I've seen this some therapists on TikTok label this as a red flag, and I don't think it's a red flag. I think there's more to it, but I've heard a lot of debate on TikTok, which I do spend a little bit too much time on,
Yeah.
about therapists having to dress professionally, right? Or like really take time to get done up, and like therapists are only, don't go to a therapist that like shows up in like a sweatshirt or like,
Oh, really?
they've said, and I'm like,
Don't
you know
come to
what?
me.
This is where I get to say autonomy.
This is us in our sweatshirts.
This is autonomy. If you
This is me.
right, if you don't like this, then I get it. And if you want a more professional therapist that like is all done up and hair curled and heels and
Yeah.
the whole nine yards, then that is so fine. And you can
Yeah.
go find. And if you're a therapist,
They're out there.
yeah, if you're a therapist and you like to do that, go for it. But let's not put false narratives in people's heads.
Yeah, I think that's a great point too. I like that you said that there's just going to be obviously a variety, but defining professionalism, I think in this space it's hard. I mean, look at us. We're on Therapist Unhinged podcast, and some people would feel like, hey, a therapist on social media or a therapist doing this.
Mhm.
There's probably some people who are like, what the hell are they doing? And
Yeah.
why are they cursing? And why are they,
Right.
it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I will say I feel like I actually did a research project for this in my undergrad.
Love it.
It was
Evidence.
evidence-based right here.
Mhm.
So it was a big approach to, I had three sort of stimuli, and it was this woman and man doing a talk of just like a 30-minute spiel, and the kids had to basically recite back something they learned. They took a little quiz afterwards. This is all I'm going, oh God, it's been like 10, 12 years. So I had three different versions of the man and the woman. So one, the woman was all dressed up to the night, like professional makeup, hair done,
Blazer.
everything, the whole thing. And then the second stimuli for the woman was very neutral, neutral tones, no makeup, not disheveled look, like slick back hair. So just very like comfortable, but not like disheveled. So the other stimuli was disheveled, which was like a mess, dirty clothes. Like, so I had like all three of those. So the woman and then the man was the same thing, dressed to the nines, neutral, and then disheveled. And they all gave the same kind of spiel. Everyone took a test. The neutral stimuli had the best grades for both sides, man and woman. And so that showed that there was a level of connection and being able to recite, being able to retain, and just not being distracted
Right.
by the presenter and the person in front of them.
Right.
So I will say, like, realizing that and connecting with that, that's not just therapy. That's a lot of things. That's teachers, that's stuff like that to take into consideration. That sometimes your presence or the way you're presenting yourself can be distracting.
Yeah.
And of course, like that's something too, that's a level to it. But I also would say as a therapist, I like to be comfortable.
Yes.
I like to feel comfortable. I like to know that I'm not, distracting the person in front of me, because I also am fully aware of our clients and our patients wanting to please us if
Mm.
they find us more, pleasing, or like,
Right.
aesthetically pleasing.
Power differential. I
Yeah,
think
there's a
is
power differential. And then there's also just like recognizing, that, if you have like an appeal to you,
right.
people want to appeal to you.
Right.
And so that doesn't help us as therapists along the way, because they're not going to tell us the truth sometimes.
Right.
So I feel like when I bring myself to this, and mind you, I will usually wear like a sweatshirt, slacks. Like,
Right.
I'm not in like leggings to a
Right.
session, and I'm not in tennies, but I'll be in like, some good cute sneakers that I spent some money on.
Right.
Like, but of course, slicked back bun, my hair isn't going to be a mess. So it's a very neutral, approachable presence that I like to hold.
Yeah.
And again, it makes me comfortable in my space. My space will always be, professional, where it's like saying, hey, everything is set up the way it is. This is a pleasant space to be in, not chaotic,
Right.
not to the nines. Like, you want the whole thing for them. So I think putting professionalism on like a look and what that should be like is very
biased.
rigid thinking.
Rigid,
and
biased.
rigid thinking, red flags, because some people might want that. Some people might want that.
Love
and
that.
Good. I'm glad that's out there for you. But I'm here in my sweatshirt and slacks for the people who don't want that.
I like that you said neutral too, because, I think that a lot of the basis for this argument was like, if your therapist shows up looking like they just rolled out of bed and like looks like they're not well, then obviously somebody seeking help is not going to appeal to that. And so I really like that you said neutral, because I do like that, and I do agree with that. And I also think like, yeah, if we're trying to define what professionalism is, like, I think it goes beyond looks, right? Like, I could be dressed to the nine and be sitting here like with my legs open, like, giving you therapy like this, and telling you to go break up with your boyfriend, right? And then red flag, and I could still look very nice, right?
I wish I had a buzzer, but you're doing a great
Thank you.
You're doing a great buzzer impersonation.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's just like, again, this is all, we're not even going to be rigid about this, because that's the whole goal of this. If you like it, go for it. If you don't do it.
Rigid in therapy, red flag.
You want to do a quiz? You want to do a rapid fire quiz?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I'm
where we label red flag or green flag.
Oh, okay.
Okay, you ready?
Should we? Yeah, are you okay.
I'm going to go first. Are you ready?
Nervous.
Okay. Your therapist came to session and she immediately remembered your dog's name.
Green flag.
Ding 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 ding.
Drogon.
You want to do one?
Yeah, let's do your therapist. You missed your appointment and your therapist messaged you, just checking in and making sure that everything was okay.
Ding, ding, ding. Green flag. Okay. Your therapist farted during session and blamed it on you and said that gross, you farted. What do you think?
I don't know. I actually would die laughing.
Right, but if she blames it on you.
Was she serious?
Yes, she said, you're gross, you farted. You're
okay,
disgusting.
Then yeah, red flag. I would be like, good one.
Thank you. I really had to bring up fart or poop in that. Yeah.
I'm dying. I was like, is she serious?
Yeah.
No, not you. But I was like, is she seriously blaming me? Because we're the only two people in the room.
No, she's blaming you. She's saying, you're gross. I can't believe you did that.
Red flag.
Big red flag.
Big red flag. Now, if she was just like,
if she
farted and she was just like, she'll be like, what would you rate that on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, or like, hey,
how would you rate that on a Likert scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the grossest? And I would just be like, you're cool.
Yeah.
Green flag.
Do you need me to open a window? Green flag.
Green flag.
Right. Okay, your turn.
I would say like, hey, if they remembered, therapist comes in, patient comes in, and they check in on the plans that you had that weekend because they remembered the plans that you made.
Oh, green flag.
Green flag.
That's awesome. They come in, therapist comes in and calls you by a different name.
Oh. Tough. Like, is it...
Like, I'm like...
Is it close?
No, it's like...
See, I'm so understanding.
I know. No, I think, like, there could be a bad day, right? But I'm consistently calling you, like, Brenda.
Oh, consistently messing it up? Okay, yeah, that's red flag.
Right.
There'd be one thing if I'm, like, so scatterbrained and I'm calling you someone else's name.
Like my husband by accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
debatable.
red flag if it's too much, but it's also red flag if you're not correcting them.
Right.
That's again, remember not being honest with your therapist.
Right. Like, hey, please stop calling me Brenda. That's not
You're
my
like,
name.
It's Brenda.
Yeah.
It's Leviosa. Not Leviosa.
Pronunciation's important. We want to get it right.
Absolutely is. Pronouns.
Green flag.
If your therapist keeps messing up your pronouns and doesn't correct themselves.
Red flag.
Yes. Major red flag.
Major red flag.
And also if you don't necessarily provide them with your pronouns, that's something like, hey, check in with that because you deserve to be called by your pronouns.
I've actually had a lot of experience with that. Like I had a patient who their pronouns was they them, and I told them at the very beginning, hey, this is new for me.
Yeah.
Please correct me if I misspeak. I am being very intentional about respecting your pronouns, but if I slip up, please correct me and know that it is not coming from a harmful place.
I think it's important too, because I know I work with a lot of kiddos, and so from right off the bat, I'm like, pronouns, name we prefer to go by, and so I like embed it in my brain. Harmony.
Yeah.
Just start growling it. No, but I will say too, there's times in the individual sessions, because groups is different. And I always ask in individual sessions, I was like, hey, if I slip up or someone slips up, how would you like me to approach it? Because sometimes people are like, just correct and move on. Or they're like, yeah, apologies, cool. Like people kind of tell me like what they're needing in that time, but you have to open up the space for that too.
Right. Green flag.
Yeah, green. Thanks.
Green flag. Yeah. Open up the space and be willing to make changes and be a human, because we do make mistakes, and it's like, I'm willing to admit that, but
because some people like me to just like, hey, correct and move on. I don't want to make a big deal about it. But then some people are like, I appreciate an apology.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm like, where do people lie? Because it's different for everyone.
That was fun.
That was good. I was a little nervous because I'm not quick-witted like that.
Oh, my quick-wittedness will always lead to talking about farts. So if I'm thinking really hard, then it's thinking too hard. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think we talked obviously on the therapist red flags. We obviously just want to make sure that you understand that people are usually fluid. You understand that, most therapists label what they're doing, and their modalities. So being curious with their approaches and making sure you're setting yourself up for success, but also realizing it's not one size fits all.
Right.
That's where the red flag was in our past, that, you were stuck with this one person. You're not.
It's an old story you're living in. You have choice.
Tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time. You get to make choices.
You get to choose. And just because something, happens, feel that. And this is me talking to myself. If something happens in a therapeutic relationship that, you don't jam with, don't let it shut you down. Work through that and try to see, on the other side and make adjustments, like finding a therapist who works with therapists.
Right. Yeah. And I will say also, like, to give a little thought, over the next week for yourself, if you're thinking about therapy, if you're, if you've had a bad experience and you're wanting to like open that door again, think about what your therapy non-negotiables are, right? And then find a therapist that fits that.
The pros and cons, because that would be very fluid of you.
That would be super curious, super fluid, super green flag of you.
Yeah,
ding, ding,
absolutely.
ding, 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 ding.
We would be very, very proud of you for that. And obviously just proud of you for exploring this, because this, this topic content might not be, relatable to everybody.
Right.
But, this is something whenever you go in, we want you to kind of be equipped with, hey, this is what this should be like, feel like, move like. And, it takes a few sessions to kind of get that rapport.
Yeah, give it a chance.
Yeah, give it some movement.
Give it some movement, unless it's like hard red flags therapy, right? And you're getting called, your therapist is calling you names. And
if your therapist is calling you names,
get out.
If you notice you're withholding information, if you notice that you're trying to please them, maybe even just talk to them about that. Like, hey, I notice I've noticed I haven't been telling you a few things.
What do you think that's about, Taylor? Right? We got to get curious.
You look way too hot for me, Maddie. I can't. I can't. Breach.
Green flag.
Green flag.
Green flag. We love the honesty.
Well,
yeah, this feels like a good place to
leave it at.
Yeah. That's fun.
I appreciate you guys. Maddie, you're a walking green flag.
You're a walking green flag.
Thank
and
you.
We're good because we could admit when we red flag it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I might still red flag it along the way.
I probably
I'm hoping they're more orange or yellow nowadays.
Yeah.
I hope they're not as harshly red, but
but it could happen, and just tell me.
We out here.
We out here.
Well, next episode will be our...
Don't ask me to name it.
No.
Oh, okay. No.
No, it's our disorder series. So we'll be tapping into our eating disorder series. We'll have about 3 to 4 episodes for just ED or eating disorders. I will call it ED a lot because that's just what I'm used to. But we'll have Maddie and I on the couch to kind of dive in a little bit and just give us, I don't want to say like brief, but there's so many layers. So it won't be just a, 1 hour episode. It's just going to be kind of the basics and just kind of touching in. But then the episodes after that are going to dive into certain areas and platforms, like I said, in the sports world, with women. And I think, I actually think I'm going to bring like a dietitian in, I think at one point too, to just go into what they kind of see on their end.
And we've got a cool guest on the lineup as well for some, we won't give it away now, but just some, we've got different, it's not just therapy we're including, we're talking about a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So real life stories are coming into the fold. So we're excited to have y'all be a part of that. Yeah. But y'all keep it unhinged, besties. Enjoy. And I don't even know when you'll be hearing this.
Right. But go figure out your therapy non-negotiables.
Yeah.
Go tell your therapist if they're green flagging you or if they're red flagging you.
Yeah.
If they're green flagging you, go tell your therapist you appreciate it.
And recognize if you're throwing in some red flags in there. Recognize if you're withholding some stuff. If you're canceling those sessions, consistently. Are we avoiding something? Just check in with yourself.
Go be curious.
Bye, guys.
Bye.